Hey guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to tint the mirror blinkers of your car using VVivid's Light Smoke Tint. So to begin with, make sure that your blinkers are fully cleaned and repaired. Cut off a piece big enough to cover the entire blinker, left and right, up and down, giving yourself plenty of excess on all sides so that you have some extra space to be able to hold the vinyl as you apply it. VVivid Light Smoke Tint for headlights and taillights is a dry application tint. And so you see there, I just peeled off the entire backing sheet. And what I'm doing is, because the back side of the blinker has a flat part where it ends and kind of sharp, cuts off like a shelf, I'm tacking the vinyl on the back side of the blinker. Just changing angles here a little bit. And then once I've got that anchored, what I'm going to do now is stretch the vinyl across the rest of the blinker body there. And so I'm just adding a little bit of heat. I have it on low. My heat gun, I have it on low. And I'm just soaking the vinyl with a little bit of heat to soften it up. I'm not trying to get it super tacky or gummy or whatever, but I'm just trying to get it soft enough so that I can give it a light stretch. And I'm pulling in a triangular motion. You can kind of see the angles where I'm pulling up on my left hand up into the left, and then my right hand down and back into the right and down in a triangular motion. Once I got some of the anchor just past that shelf there on the back side, what I'm doing is I'm now heating the vinyl again to give it a little bit of stretch to kind of bring it across the rest of the blinker there, as you can see that I'm doing. Again, giving it a triangular motion pull and then smoothing it across the high point or the ridge of the blinker body itself. So I'm just using my thumb and my fingers to smooth it down across the middle, making sure everything is nice and smooth and laid down well. You notice that I didn't lay it all the way to the very ends. I've lifted about an inch from the back there. And so what I'm doing now is, because I was stretching it, I'm giving it a little bit of heat to relax it. And now that it's relaxed, you can see I'm just holding the vinyl, I'm not pulling it anymore, and it's relaxed and shrunk back. I'm just molding it down to the rest of the blinker, down to that pointed part towards the front. Had a little bit of excess now, and so I'm just cutting that off there with my knife. And again, just when I heated the vinyl on the front side of the blinker just to relax it and mold it down. And then now I'm just going to use my squeegee to shape that vinyl and start getting it tucked into the edges of the blinker housing where it meets the mirror. Where there's a bend right there, it's kind of binding up the vinyl. So what I'm doing is creating a relief cut, and you can see that I'm creating a U-shaped kind of cut because I don't want to have a line that goes straight in towards the body of the vinyl, where if I start to pull it, it could split the vinyl. Again, I needed a little bit more because there's still some more bend there, because this is a very rounded shape. And so I'm trying to relieve some of the tension where it binds up as it tries to go across the side there. Now, what I've done here now is that I've released some of that tension. I lifted up the vinyl and I gave it a little bit of heat to shrink it. And what it did was basically shrunk the vinyl that was stretched, because again, I stretched over that high point around that curved area. It basically shrank and sucked itself underneath the blinker. And now when it was warmed up and shrunk in, I'm just using my squeegee and then now a micro squeegee to tuck in that vinyl into the edge there, with a gap where the blinker housing itself meets into the mirror cap housing. Continuing on, you saw I just shaped it there. What I'm using now is my squeegee, the hard edge of my squeegee, to essentially do the same thing on the top. So I've got a little bit of binding. You can kind of see right at the radius where the high point of the where it curves, and so I'm going to basically do the same thing on the top side where I'm going to create a relief cut. And you can see I'm creating kind of a U shape there to create so that there's no straight line that goes straight into the blinker where it would cause a split or a tear once I pull the vinyl. Lift the vinyl back up, give it a little bit of heat to shrink it back in, because that's where it stretched around that top radius of the blinker housing. And then while it's soft and it's shrunk back in, now I'm just using the hard edge of my squeegee to shape the vinyl into the gap between the blinker housing and the mirror cap housing itself. Now making it back to where I started on the front, on the very back side, where there's kind of a 90-degree drop off or shelf where it's curved and it drops in sharply. I just gave it a little bit of heat to relax the vinyl around that corner area there, and then I'm using the hard edge of my squeegee to shape the vinyl into the gap between the housing and the mirror cap. So basically heating it to, I stretched it, heated it to stretch around the main body of the vinyl. And then I gave it a little bit of heat. Once I got it set up, I gave it a little bit of heat to shrink it back to its original shape using the squeegee, and in this case now a micro squeegee, to make sure everything is tucked in nice and tightly, prepping myself for to be able to cut the vinyl without any issue. Once I've done all that, giving it a little bit more heat one more time just to make sure that everything has indeed shrunk down, that everything is set, and that it's ready to cut. There's not going to be any more movement when some more heat hits it later, for example, like in this heat gun, or when I put it out in the sun and the sun hits it and gives it some more heat. So once I'm satisfied that I've got that heated down, there's going to be no more movement, no more shrinking. I'm just giving it one more look over just to make sure. Saw a little area where I want to tuck it in a little bit better. I'm using another type of micro squeegee which is a little bit more flexible so it can bend around curves. A little bit better than that black micro squeegee, which is a hard one. So I'm just taking a little bit of extra time to make sure everything is tucked in nice and tight, full coverage, and that it's really ready to be trimmed out. All right, so what I'm doing next is I got my knife. I'm snapping off a new blade so that it is super sharp, a fresh blade, because you want to make sure that you have the sharpest knife possible to be able to cut this. And so what I'm going to do is take the tip of the blade and float it in between in the gap where there's some natural empty space in between the blinker housing and the headlight housing. I'm just finding a good place to start with. I'm starting on the underside in this case. Found a good place to start, trimming it very gently and easily. And again, with a super sharp knife, this vinyl, it'll cut right through the vinyl like butter, so there should be no resistance. You want to make sure that you have a super sharp knife, because if you don't, what could happen is the blade could drag on the vinyl and it could bundle it up. It could cause the knife blade to jump out, and you don't want to do that. I am cutting directly here, but again, I'm cutting in the gap between the vinyl, or excuse me, in between the blinker housing and the mirror cap housing. So the blade is actually floating in an empty space, but at the same time, I'm cutting the vinyl. Once I've completed that, just carefully peel off the vinyl. Make sure you don't do it too fast, because if you didn't cut all the way through, you could pull up some of the vinyl that was applied. I'm going to heat everything down one last time to make sure everything is good. If there's any loose edges, make sure that they shrink in and around the blinker housing. I have the heat on low when I'm doing this, because this is a plastic housing, both the mirror cap as well as the blinker housing. High heat could potentially crack the housing itself, and you don't want to be doing that. Again, just giving it some more heat, and then the heat also will show if there's any air bubbles that I missed. All right, so now bringing the camera in a little bit closer, you can see everything is full coverage, everything's nice and smooth, tucked in nicely, and that everything is squared away and set to go. All right, guys, so this blinker has been wrapped. So I hope you found this video to be instructive and informative. If you did, give it a thumbs up and please hit that subscribe button. Thanks, guys.